Hello everyone and welcome back to Coach Craig Sports. This is going to be the final top performer video of the year. So these are the top performers in fantasy for week 17. I know some of these names will look familiar. There might be a few outliers for this week on there as well, with some guys resting and not playing, of course. But this is what the top performer video is. Just a shout out to the guys that were the best this week. But with that being said, schedule is going to be a little bit different going forward. Probably going to take a day off tomorrow, get caught up on a couple other different things. But Wednesday we'll be back kind of talking some playoff matchups, maybe some head coaching news as well. But like I said, going into the off season, going to have a little bit different content out there. Of course, we're going to be talking some DFS for these playoff matchups as well. That's probably going to be on Thursday once again, maybe even into Friday, talking about building some lineups for this weekend. But with that being said, we'll get into it. You know, we got top 5 quarterbacks on the week. So we got, first off, Cam Newton. And this is a nice little surprise here. 21 out of 30, 242 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 79 rushing yards. And he did catch a touchdown pass as well. 44.48 fantasy points. This is in 6-point per passing touchdown format. Then we got Kirk Cousins, 28 out of 40, 405 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interception, 1 rushing yard, 1 rushing touchdown, 40.3 fantasy points overall. Kirk Cousins definitely had a strong finish to the year, and hopefully he can continue that going forward. Then we got Justin Herbert, the rookie phenom, and he was 22 out of 31, 302 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 9 rushing yards, and a rushing touchdown, 38.98 fantasy points overall. Definitely going to be exciting to see him going into year 2. Then we got the opposite end of the spectrum, Tom Brady, the GOAT. 26 out of 41, 399 yards passing, just under 400. 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, 3 rushing yards. And last but not least, out of the top 5, how could we forget Aaron Rodgers? He's pretty much been top 5 quarterback all year. I think there's 2 or 3 weeks that he didn't quite make the cut, but definitely had a great season. Definitely an MVP caliber season. 19 out of 24, 240 yards, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 4 rushing yards, 32.58 fantasy points. Then we got the best of the rest. We got Deshaun Watson. Once again, he was great. He is definitely an MVP candidate as well. I know the Texans only have 4 wins, but he has been one of the best players in all of football. And without him, they would not have had a single win. Lamar Jackson was pretty efficient once again. I believe 3 touchdown passes. He also ran the ball pretty effectively. Matt Stafford, 3 touchdown passes. Drew Lock over 300 yards and 2 touchdown passes. And Josh Allen dominated the Dolphins, even though he really only played the first half of the game. Then we got some running backs, and it was a pretty good week for running back performances overall. So we got Jonathan Taylor, first off, 253 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 reception for 1 yard. 38.4 fantasy points. This is in PPR scoring format. Just keep that in mind. Then we got Derrick Henry, 250 yards, 2 touchdowns. I believe he did have a fumble as well. 35 fantasy points. Darwin Thompson, he actually stepped in pretty nicely for the Chiefs. 45 yards and a rushing touchdown, 7 receptions, 65 yards and a receiving touchdown, 30 fantasy points overall. Definitely showing that he can put in some work when given the chance. Then we got Alexander Madison. Great day for him against Detroit. He had 95 rushing yards, 1 rushing touchdown, 3 receptions for 50 yards, and a receiving touchdown as well. 29.5 fantasy points. Then we got David Montgomery. Pretty solid day once again. 69 yards, 1 rushing touchdown, and 9 receptions for 63 yards. 28.2 fantasy points. Definitely a very solid performance and a great end of the year for him as well. Other notable performances that we do have, J.K. Dobbins. I believe he had 160 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. Jeff Wilson, he had a receiving and a rushing touchdown in this one. Then we had Sony Michel. Pretty effective all-around game for him. David Johnson, pretty solid once again. Antonio Williams, who you guys have probably never heard of. He scored 2 touchdowns in garbage time against the Dolphins. Definitely a name to consider, if you're in a deep dynasty league. Worth the stash, if nothing else. Then we got Josh Jacobs, scored 2 touchdowns, and Ty Montgomery filling in for Alvin Kamara, filling in for Latavius Murray. He went for over 100 yards. Kind of surprising he only had 1 reception in that game, though. Then we had wide receivers, and this was an insane week for wide receivers. We had 8 wide receivers go over the 30-point threshold, and that is crazy. We'll start off with Brandon Cooks, 16 targets, 11 receptions. 166 yards, 2 touchdowns, 39.6 fantasy points. Then we got Marvin Jones, 11 targets, 8 receptions, 180 yards, 2 touchdowns, 38 fantasy points. Antonio Brown, AB coming back, 14 targets, 11 receptions, 138 yards, and 2 touchdowns, 36.8 fantasy points. And then we got Isaiah McKenzie, who you probably would have never thought would have been on this list, but he had 9 targets, 6 receptions, 65 yards, 2 receiving touchdowns, and took a kickoff return back for a touchdown. So he had 36.5 fantasy points in ESPN PPR scoring. If you guys use a different site, his scoring might be a little bit different, but it's still over 30 points either way. And then we had Sterling Shepard, 10 targets, 8 receptions, 112 yards, 1 receiving touchdown, 24 rushing yards, and a rushing touchdown, 33.6 fantasy points. Other notable performances we had, A.J. Brown was awesome once again. Chris Godwin, he was awesome. He also had 2 touchdowns in this game. Tyler Lockett, also 2 touchdowns. Justin Jefferson, just another game above 100 receiving yards. He also set the rookie receiving yards record in this one. Marquise Brown, 2 touchdowns. Chase Claypool, over 100 yards and a touchdown. Laviska Shenault, 2 touchdowns. And then Jerry Jeudy, as much as I don't like him, he had a solid day, mainly on the back of a 92-yard touchdown. Some broken defense by the Las Vegas Raiders defense. Then last but not least, we got some tight ends. And we got Darren Waller up at the top again. 10 targets, 9 receptions, 117 yards, 1 touchdown. 26.7 fantasy points. His stock is definitely going to be way up going into next year's draft season. Then, a surprise, we got Chris Herndon, everybody's favorite hype target going into the year. 9 targets, 7 receptions, 63 yards, 1 touchdown, 19.3 fantasy points. Then we got Pharaoh Brown for the Texans. 5 targets, 5 receptions, 48 yards, 1 touchdown, 15.8 fantasy points. Solid day overall for him, but not somebody you want to count on going forward. Then we got Jared Cook. 5 targets, 4 receptions, 43 yards and a touchdown, 14.3 fantasy points. And last but not least, Dalton Schultz. And that's actually a typo. Dalton Schultz actually had 10 targets, 7 receptions for 70 yards, 14 points overall. Other notable performances we did have was George Kittle. Pretty solid day once again. Not quite your George Kittle numbers that you're probably used to, but playing on limited snaps, still pretty efficient. Donald Parham, he had 3 catches, 37 yards and a touchdown. Austin Hooper had a solid day with the touchdown as well. Logan Thomas, he had a touchdown and played on 100% of snaps once again. But with that being said, this is the final top performer video for this season. And if you guys think I missed anyone at all, please let me know down in the comments. I hope you all had a great fantasy football season. I hope you guys brought home some championships. And hopefully we can celebrate those victories together. But with that being said, if you guys liked and enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you guys have any ideas for content moving forward, especially in the off season, feel free to reach out to me. Let me know what you guys would like to see. Greatly would appreciate that feedback. But if you are new to my channel, or you've been watching my videos for a while and you're not already subscribed, please consider subscribing. It really helps build the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports, and that's really one for you, the viewers. Helping you with your fantasy football teams, talking some football in general, and just trying to provide quality content overall. But with that being said, if you're a new or current subscriber who's yet to do so, also hit that notification bell down below. It'll let you know every single time I post up a new video. Like I talked about earlier in the video, going to be switching things up a little bit now that fantasy is over. Definitely going to take a day off tomorrow, get caught up on some other things. Definitely on Wednesday, I'll be back talking about some of these head coach position openings, kind of talking about who I think might end up where. And then on Thursday, we'll be talking about some DFS for the week. Maybe even walking through building some lineups with you guys. But with that being said, I hope you guys all enjoyed this video. Hopefully you guys all brought home some championships and had a great fantasy football season. And with that being said, I hope you really have a great rest of your day.